Once again, let me reiterate this. First, you finish your class notes, then you think about any other things. Because every day 2 people come and ask me, books kab doge? From my side, I am ready. I think they'll give you in 1 or 2 days. But in those booklets, there is hardly anything of anthropological thought. So whatever thought related information is there, you depend on your class notes and whatever handouts that we are going to send to you. First, let me list out the leftover syllabus from anthropological thought. And don't also worry that for one chapter we are taking so much of a time. Baki kya hoga, kab hoga, hoga nahi hoga kind of a thing. You don't worry, because this is the biggest one and it requires a long time to deal with things. There are certain topics which we do in half a class also, the entire chapter. The leftover things now. One is Brown's functionalism. Levi-Strauss structuralism. Leach is a small fellow, so जैसा बड़ा सा पिक्चर बनाएंगे Levi-Strauss साथ में एक लेबल लगाएंगे kind of a thing, with due respects. And symbolism. Symbolism, we do it as symbolism plus cognitive theories. We have one other small thing called cultural materialism. My paper for 22nd is ready. अपना preparation complete कर लो. हाँ, neo evolution. Six of them. Can I? Yeah. Out of these, I would want to today talk about the last one in your syllabus. Then I will take you to symbolism. While we do symbolism, parallelly we will also be doing Levi-Strauss, because Levi-Strauss is such a fellow, people did not know where to put him. So some people call him a symbolic anthropologist. He himself calls himself structuralist. So based on that combination, Levi-Strauss is both a structuralist and somebody from symbolic school. Right now, we are going to talk today about postmodernism. Once I do that, I will take you to symbolism. Within symbolism, one thinker we are going to talk about today, that is Geertz. A question about him appeared in the exam, I think last year. These are the two things. But we are not going chronologically, that you will have to understand. After Malinowski, parallel to the Malinowski was Brown. And when Brown and Malinowski were busy in one continent, ladies were busy on the other continent. So technically speaking, chronologically speaking, after culture personality, I should have been talking about Levi-Strauss. But I am taking a bit of time so that you understand what symbols are. This term postmodernism we see in most of the social sciences. Pick up any major social science, there is the usage of this term postmodern. If we see the simple English understanding, maybe that's the time after modernism. There can be pre-modernism, modernism and postmodernism. But how the postmodern is understood in different disciplines is different from one to the other. So these are those topics that are not discussed in your regular textbooks. Suppose I say Makhanza hai ya fir Upadhyaya. Where were you, Garima? Not seen these days? I was missing you actually. Last couple of days I was looking for you actually to congratulate for your script. But, so I was saying that postmodernism is differently understood in different disciplines, and also because वो later जो schools हैं, especially cognitive, symbolic school, postmodern school, cultural materialism, these schools, they are considered to be very modern 20th, late 20th century and 21st century schools. They are most often not there in the regular books, so you solely depend on what we talk in the class and what you write or what is provided to you. Sir, I have to say this, that you should be slightly more attentive in today's class, because maybe my choice of today is a difficult one. I don't know how I am going to convince you. Of course, I don't want to convince you, but how I present to you, that's more important. The term postmodern is mostly for the first time used in art forms, when different kinds of art forms and art has art and painting when it had, and art and architecture when it was evolving. Some of you who must have done architectural in your graduation, you must have studied the theoretical foundations, how historically architecture must have evolved. As a part of that, this discussion comes up. I'll give you one word from art related understanding of postmodern. Then I will present to you two different other variants. These days it has become a fashion that we have art galleries everywhere, especially officers ke biwiyan hain. They started with these things. Hell, a lot of time when you don't know what to do, you scribble some painting which nobody understands. We call it abstract paintings. उसके सामने ठहरो, घंटों देखते रहो, क्या समझ आता है, kind of a thing. I also happen to go to such kind of, because when people invite me, I can't say no art gallery. When I go there, my expectation is something like Raja Ravi Verma's paintings, but दूर दूर तक रवि वर्मा, we can't see him there. But something उसमें से कुछ समझना पड़ता है आपको. I don't know how people understand, but people do understand. For me, description is necessary. I ask the painter what actually she wanted to paint there, kind of. This is abstractness. I think that word, with due respect, sir, I love all forms of arts. No? I don't want to be a controversial fellow. Postmodern, in the case of art forms, is actually to do with something called abstractness. When I say abstract, maybe indefinite. Maybe that requires a lot of explanation of what actually they mean by what they are saying. First of all, we'll have to know whether they are clear about what they are saying. So I will start with, I think I will start with one story here. There was one very well-known bishop, he was giving this story about what is postmodernism. The story goes something like this. There were two Australian navigators, sailors. So they sailed all the way to UK. They landed in London because the life in London and back home, their life is very much different. they wanted to take all the benefits of the brief stay that they were going to be there. They wanted to enjoy the nightlife there, so they go to the pub, and after having had a lot of booze there, they come out of the pub, and they were drooling. They didn't know where to go, kind of things. They were not really sure where they were. So they see one unknown person walking towards them. He was highly honored naval person. So when he comes, the officer comes close to them. Of course, he was very well dressed and in his uniform with all his medals and kind of things. So these drooling fellows ask him, "Where do you think we are? And where are we?" kind of. And that man gets disturbed with that question. Then he angrily asks them, "What do you think I am? Who do you think I am?" This mood of anger goes unnoticed because they are in not that mood that they understand. So when he says, "Who do you think I am?" then immediately one of the fellows drooling, he says that, "I think we are in a very chaotic situation. We don't know where we are, and he doesn't know who he is." And the bishop says, this is what is postmodernism. We don't know where we are, and we don't know what we are. Once if we understand this, the abstractness in art form, and the kind of story this man narrates, you will have to get a brief hint that in postmodernism in general, there is a confusion about who we are, where and what we are. Are you with me, sir? हाँ हाँ नहीं आपके पीछे विश्वनाथ नहीं, आपका नाम क्या है? हाँ निखिल. हाँ, you are Vishwanath, no? So keeping that in mind, if we go forth, I wanted to show you a couple of names actually, but maybe I will start with my thing. There is this very well-known scholar. Sir, I am going to give you two kinds of views. One, of course, as a passing reference to know what the basic meaning of postmodernism is, we have used the field of art. This man is actually a theologian. He tries to communicate to us what postmodernism is. Once we understand what he's trying to communicate, we try to understand what he's saying. And then I will link it to anthropological perspective of postmodernism. In fact, I can directly start off with what our anthropological perspective of postmodernism is. But then that will be very mechanical. Without knowing what was going on elsewhere in the world, if you simply pick up this small piece from there, you will not understand the relation. It's something like this. When we started with cultural evolution theories, if we were not referring to the basic motivation they got from Darwin, it looks to be something that is unattached to the rest of the developments that were happening in the world. I'll try to present him in the as lucid manner as possible. Pre-modern, modern, and postmodern schools. He starts with one basic Renaissance and ecological crisis. God, man, and earth. Pre-modern was that time when there was God-centeredness. It was that time where it was believed that we shall not question. Don't question God, don't question the king or the ruler. You're not supposed to question. I think in many cases we still are here. What we are looking at here is, in the dirt's perspective, postmodernism is a way of studying Western history. It's a way of studying Western history. So he looks at these Western communities, especially from Catholic perspective. He was trying to draw history of that kind, where for some point of time we were God-centered, and later those things happening. Of course, there were certain intermittent periods he is mentioning, because generally when one phase is being replaced by the other phase in time, things will not happen all of a sudden. There is going to be a brief period of transition. These are the transition phases. Without going into all those details, let me give you a brief account of what he says. When you started questioning, if at all you consider religion as dogmas, and Europe was seeing this emergence of question, emergence of reason, when there was a time of reason emerging, then people started to believe that man is capable of everything. He is capable of building, creating things. The question was, we are not able to see, confirm, there is no evidence for this phase. And hence, when we are not finding evidence, we go to this. We believe that man is the center. See, there is also something here you will understand. We are using the word man. When we are saying man here, it is truly man, not women. Because that was how things were said and written at that time. Until and unless maybe when the 20th century originated. So it was something like this. More or less the time period Durst mentions is maybe from 1500 to 2000 AD. Those 500 years is the time when reason emerged and we started moving into the third phase of what is called postmodern. I repeat what I'm saying. We are trying to look at how European history is actually being studied, Western history is actually looked at from the perspective of theologians. So it is something like a journey from God-centeredness to man-centeredness to earth-centeredness. What he means by this is, there was a time when people were not questioning God, not questioning authority. When you start to question, when you are starting to question, that is the phase of arrival of reason. You would look for evidence for everything that you are actually being said. Without reason, maybe without evidence, you will not accept what is said to you. It is not simply that. Parallel to that, several other things were happening. Sir, I am not dealing with all those things such as Renaissance, at the time of which wars had emerged, and several other things. But then that was a turbulent phase. After that emerges the modernity. In modernity, man is considered to be the ultimate fellow. It is believed that he is capable of doing everything, building everything. Meaning what even a religion, a god could not do, he should be in a position to do. That was the kind of confidence people had given to the ones that were questioning God. But then during the later part of time, by the time 20th century originated, even in anthropology, we see this school emerging called feminist anthropology. That was coterminous with the feminist movements elsewhere in the other disciplines. when feminist movements emerged, one of the things they challenged was whatever damages in the modern world that were happening, they were primarily because of the man's doing, meaning male's doing. And they challenged him, saying that you are not simply a builder of whatever capabilities, you are also capable of destroying. You are not simply a creator of things, but you have the equal or much more pronounced capacity of destroying. So for a brief period of time, the women's group started to propagate this idea that maybe you will have to come back to the female so that things can be conserved. But right now I'm not getting into that feminist thing. I really do not want to talk about feminism. But then I am simply looking at this. In the second stage, when we started experiencing that several catastrophes started appearing because of the kind of technological developments that man started to do. Technology was not simply destroying the cultures, they were also destroying the so-called natural environment. When this was happening, whether resource crunch or whatever, but you should also know this, 20th century is also a time when things like genocide started appearing. It is generally said that late 19th century and 20th century are the most bloodiest centuries in the world. These were the centuries that have killed those number of souls that were equal to all the previous times. That is the volume of humanity that was actually eliminated by force. So you can see that things like race, negative social elements like race or technology, they were doing the necessary damage, not simply to the humanity, but to the resource as such. That was the time the capability of man started to be questioned. And that was the time people started to talk about ecology, or this is a time of discussions about ecology and sustainable development. That is how the stream of things. Suppose you are a student of ecology, you study postmodernism as a time when we started to talk about sustainable development. Or if you are an administrator, you talk about postmodernism as a time of reconstruction of the past. When I am saying reconstruction of the past, it is not simply the administrative systems, it is how justice is actually to be given to the so-called people who are living together. Meaning people who are living in the same plane, they should be having the so-called equal access to the justice. So when I am saying this, different fields are having different kinds of interpretations of the term postmodernism. For theologians like him, this is a time where earth-centeredness is actually coming back. And several people like him, they try to show that no, this is already there in the scriptures, that finally you go back to talk about God rebuilding the lost paradise kind of things. But then I want to take up this phrase in the sense that for different disciplines, when the definition is different, the term actually doesn't clarify what we actually stand for in the contemporary times. In other words, postmodernism across all the disciplines, including in anthropology, is actually a phase of confusion. Though we try to showcase across the disciplines that see we are inventing newer concepts, newer ideas, behind all those the so-called scientific new ideas, there is a psychological element that is actually hollow. There is that hollowness behind all these technologies. And man is actually having no clue of where he is going. I hope you are following what I am saying. I don't want to show the bleak side of the future, but I think that's where we are. Interestingly, when UPSC had introduced this word postmodernism, this might be showing what is the postmodernist phase of UPSC also. where exactly we are moving. Maybe you can try drawing a history of UPSC, where we are actually moving. Are we also in postmodernism, having no clue of where to go? When you reason the reason, when you question the reason, and when reason is not giving you a proper reason, then you have no clue where to go. Because you were in that mindset that science is everything. It gives answers, it gives proofs, it gives evidences. When science failed, we didn't know where to go. Because we already demonized God. We already left him long time back for what is called science. That had cheated us very badly. That's what I say, beyond reason. Frankly, in one word to say, postmodernism portrays the time of confusion. That continues even in anthropology. But then in order to save face, certain people in anthropology, they try to give a reasonable answer to the word postmodern. I tell you how it is. Postmodern in anthropology is seen as a school that challenges every kind of ethnographic writings. Understand this closely. I repeat what I said. We started with the art form, indefinite nature, inconclusive nature, or hidden nature of what the artist wants to say. This is actually a phase of confusion. Many disciplines are there in that stage, more so anthropology. You don't know whom to support. Though we say that the lowly communities are the ones that we will have to support, we have no clue whom to support. If we are supporting the fellows there, your master will punish you. If you are supporting the master, they are going to curse you. Having that confusion in the discipline, there are people like him who try to trace the evolution of postmodernism from questioning God to questioning science to going nowhere. That's what is the meaning of postmodern. If somebody says that I am a modern fellow, if in the current times, if somebody says that he or she is a modern fellow, you will have to communicate to them that we have come off the age of modernity. Modernity has failed on several counts. See, when I'm saying this, I might be giving my very personal views. You may disagree with me. I don't expect my students to totally agree with me. If there is a total agreement, there is no fun in learning. As long as there is no friction, there is no progress. That is the reason why the couple should always be fighting. There should always be a friction there. Only if there is a friction, there is progress in life. And I don't expect that everybody not simply agree with me. You should also understand that one cannot be liked by everybody uniformly. I look at it this way. When God himself had so many enemies, being a human, tum to tifil ho. You cannot be liked by everybody. Don't try to reason out in your life that why somebody is not liking you. That is their problem. If they are not liking you, that is their problem. And being God, he himself was not in a position to give everything that his devotees were asking for. You must have been asking so many things right from your childhood. I want to share this very beautiful thing today. My little fellow prays in the night. Venkatesh prayer gurtundi kada, dinner table. I actually see so much of Venkatesh in him. Every day, talagai kindesi, kind of. God, thank you, Lord. He starts, thank you, Lord. Thank you for the beautiful house. Thank you for the beautiful parents. God, give me some more toys. And then make my teacher not scold me in the school. He's very clear of his things. And then finally he says, Amen. I really love the way he puts across the things. But he understands that whatever he is asking for is not immediately being given to him. So the morning he gets up, he says, did he give me any more toys today? As if it's like I am putting an application for UPSC, सुबह में आ रहा IAS का post, चलो आपको मिल गया. How many years have been asking for this? Meaning that somewhere God is failing. Or maybe that communication is not reaching him. Or maybe God expects you to keep on asking him. Some of us are like that. If somebody asks us, no, बहुत अपना वो बताते हैं कि ना आप पूछते रहो. You should be a requesting fellow. I should be a person who should keep you waiting. Maybe God is of that kind. He expects his devotees keep on requesting him, keep on asking him. But we forget somewhere that God has his own time. He is neither late nor early in his time. When it has to happen, it has to happen, it will happen. But here, when we started questioning God, immediately we shifted our loyalties. Our problem is loyalty issue. Our problem is loyalty issue. When we are not getting one, we start questioning him. You're not giving me. So we immediately shifted our loyalties. Our loyalty was tested once again here. We say that science is not giving us. When science is not giving, who will give? That is the problem. Did you understand? In brief, if somebody today asks you what postmodernism is, this is what it is. When it comes to anthropology, there are a few people, I'm not complicating with the names. When you write down, I'll give the names to you. When it comes to this subject, we try to give a very interesting or very face-saving picture of our own selves. Maybe we are trying to show to the rest of the world that your postmodernism is inferior to our postmodernism. Our very elitism and then our ethnocentrism of being an anthropologist comes out there. What we are saying is postmodernism in anthropology is something like a criticism for all the kinds of ethnographic writings. In other words, these are those people who analyze all the existing ethnographs. Are you following what I'm saying? We already have come through several stages of ethnographic writings. We have seen at one place that we were writing ethnologies. Then we said that no, we will have to write from their perspective, our perspective, kind of things. There's so many things that were happening, how to write, how to get data, and all that stuff we had done. So many experiments were done. And finally we say that ethnographic realism is also not possible unnecessarily, that fellows went there and stayed for so many years there. Real picture we cannot get, kind of conclusions we already made. These are the people who are sitting in the postmodern world and trying to give judgments about how people have written earlier. They are neither going to the fields. See, they are very much different from that lot of people whom we call the ones belonging to tertiary source category or content analysis method, wherein we said that it is they want to go but they cannot go, because either they are your enemies or they are non-existing. In this particular case, they don't want to go anywhere. Very happy. When they say that they don't want to go, they look to be similar to the first fellows. But the problem of the first fellows was they were the first people to start writing. They didn't want to go, but they wanted to write. These people, neither they want to go, neither do they want to write. They are not writing anything new. And with all the kinds of pressures and problems and situations when somebody had already written, these people are there to pass judgments. Many times we can see our own mirror image in them. You don't want to create anything, but whatever is already created, they don't have anything else to do rather than giving a commentary. Postmodernists are commentators. They give commentaries about how the ethnographs were written. Yes.
And they could be called fourth generation.
Yes. They are not like maybe D.N. Majumdar, who tried to experiment with the revisit method, restudy method. So if at all, see, you are a postmodernist and you want to write a commentary about how, say, Toda was written. You are not going to Toda afresh and try to generate an ethnograph and then try to compare. It is not what is happening. They are not bothered to study culture change. In fact, I can go this far and say that they are not studying culture at all. So it's a big question whether they can be called culturologists. They are not studying the culture group. Somebody else had written their account on a culture group. You are writing a commentary primarily on the language they have used. Meaning, see, language indicates so much. We can't say no for that. Language indicates so much. I don't know how your father addresses your mother. You can recall how your father addresses your mother and vice versa. The kind of words they must be using for each other indicates the kind of relation they might be having, whether respect, love, hatred, whatever. I don't think those generations were, our parental generations were, somebody who would weigh hatred in the relation more than the responsibility and affection. Thankfully, we were products from those parents who did not nurture us. I think you agree with me, who did not nurture us on the foundations of hatred. I don't know about our own generation, because our own generation looks at the other partner as a competitor. The same attitude which we were describing between friends in the last couple of days, when the friend is going to pass the exam, you have sleepless nights, and when he is failing, you are actually making party. I think the couples of the current times are of that kind, whose salary is more, whose earning is more. See, I am earning more than yours. And because I am earning more, irrespective of gender, you should be my slave. The relations in the family, the relations between couples these days are the master and slave relations, rather than the relation of love. Love ko to aap bhool hi jao, which was there when you were in college. We are going to see some very interesting statements when we come to these topics. The time of love is a time of dream. Marriage is like an alarm. The moment it rings, love goes. So there's a big puzzle actually. Where is the love left behind all those economics? Now, when these people are writing, they were trying to write not about the culture, they were writing about how the ethnographer earlier had written. And what was the methodology of research that he must have used, whether he was using interviews, etc., whether he was having this sympathetic attitude towards the fields, whether he was judgmental about the fields. I hope you are understanding. Whether he was writing from their perspective or writing from his perspective. So it was like a post-mortem that was happening of the ethnograph that was already written, and nothing more than that. Maybe if I have to end that answer on a positive note, I may say that, because no, generally it is said that the answers have to be left on a positive note. If I have to do that, maybe I can say that the postmodernist work may inspire the future ethnographers to follow the guidelines given by them and try writing ethnographs that are not having the flaws that the postmodernists have identified. Have you got the point? So if at all you are an extreme functionalist, you want to see the function in postmodernism. And most of the researchers these days in the universities, most of the PhDs are of this kind. Every year there are at least 4 to 5 people from the southern universities, from South Indian universities where anthropology is taught. At least 4 people we find who give their dissertations on topics like contributions of LP Vidyarthi, or the biography of LP Vidyarthi, or the outlook of LP Vidyarthi, and each of those writings going into 200, 300 pages. So it's like one page from the life of Vidyarthi you're taking, and you're trying to make your life in PhD. This is what is contemporary anthropology. There are some people who say that, see, the core area of anthropology, that is simple societies, themselves are vanishing. So when they are vanishing, when they have almost got assimilated into the mainstream, where do we go for the true anthropological work? Sir, gone are the days when we still believe that true anthropology is going into the oblivion, going into the unknown corners of the world and try to explore the life of the people living there. That is no more anthropology now. We have come off time from there. Today, our effort in anthropology is try to understand who is sitting next to you, and nothing more than that. That is postmodernism, writing things. And interestingly, some of these commentaries are in poetic form also. And we see that many people from literature are becoming anthropologists in postmodernism. So people from English literature, they have a very good future in becoming a postmodernist anthropologist. Nothing original out there. That's what is postmodern. Did you understand, sir? Got some clue? Any basic questions, Sanji sir? And when you are saying that, see, others have done something wrong, maybe that you are looking at my conclusion, right? The question a friend is asking is, when you said that postmodernism is a time of confusion, and postmodernists are those people who are critical of all the ethnographs that are written, his question is, how is it that they can give a positive guideline to the future? When you have said that, see, this is negative, this is negative, this is negative, you avoid all negative, it will be positive. Many times, right from our childhood, we hear a big list of don'ts rather than do's. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. The parent goes on saying, don't do this. Finally, when you ask them, what should I do? Other than what I asked you not to do. It's as simple as it is. See, when I'm giving this positive picture, it is only to save the face of anthropology. I'm very clear in what I'm saying. This is not, though we feel hilarious about it, but that's what is the reality. When you have no clue, you'll have to try finding your new path. That's what the anthropology is trying to do now. At least at the theoretical level. At the practical level, new arenas are opening up. Like, archaeological anthropology today is a booming discipline. There are so many archaeologists emerging, if not in India. India doesn't do much about archaeology. But elsewhere in the world, archaeological anthropology is a big thing. If not anything else, we will try to dig the evidence of God. Maybe somewhere we will find the remnants of God out there. And then there are new fields that are emerging, like linguistic anthropology. When you are meeting several other people, linguistic groups, where there is a synergy there, kind of things. But when it comes to the foundations, that is anthropological thought is concerned, the confusion prevails. Anybody else? Sanjay sir, ma'am. The question is, if ethnograph is a momentary one, how can he judge about something happened? Sir, ma'am, postmodernists could be the first people to confirm that, see, any ethnograph is momentary. They believe that ethnograph is momentary. They believe that it is not something that you can cross-check. They believe that you cannot cross-check because it has happened a long time back. Maybe that is also the reason why they don't want to go to the field. When they say that I cannot cross-check, why should I unnecessarily go and do the business of cross-checking? Once again, let me tell you this. They are not actually talking about the culture of the group that is reported about. They are worried about the way any culture group is actually presented. Meaning, your tone of presentation, are you authoritative from the colonial perspective? Or maybe do you think, being an ethnographer, that you are superior to the rest of the lot? So it is actually an examination of the personality of the writer rather than writing an account of the culture group. Did I? Anybody else? Sir, when it comes to thought, whatever you must have written in the notebook, whatever 10-15 sentences that you have written in the notebook, you will have to go through the same statements again and again the day in order to understand what you have written.
Anthropology is study of culture.
Agreed.
మనం ట్రైబ్స్ కానీ వీళ్ళనే రీసెర్చ్ చేస్తున్నాం. ఒక ఆల్రెడీ డెవలప్ మోడర్న్ సొసైటీలో కూడా కల్చర్స్ ఉన్నాయి, ఎమర్జ్ అవుతుంది. సో వాళ్ళందరూ మనలో కలిసిపోయారు కాబట్టి ఇప్పుడు మోడర్న్ కల్చర్ని కూడా రీసెర్చ్ చేయడం ఒక ఆంథ్రోపాలజీ.
ఎస్.
సో ఆ కల్చర్ ఇప్పుడు సోషియాలజీ ఆంథ్రోపాలజీ ఇవి ఆ టైప్లో ఆ ఏరియాలో ఆలోచించట్లేమని
ఆలోచిస్తున్నాం. Actually, currently the question the gentleman was asking was, anthropology, is it only the study of cultures of the primitive societies? Is it not the culture of the people who have already evolved and got merged with the mainstream society, urban society, or kind of? If that is what we are studying, is it something to do with sociology? Is that the question? Sir, from time to time, the identity of any discipline changes. The subject matter also changes, especially if it is a social science. Somebody who must have studied economics in your college, the economics books that you have studied at that time are not the same ones that maybe an young fellow today is picking up. The discipline being so very dynamic, if I am looking primarily at economics, we see that it's not generations. Within a year's time, within a 6 months of time, the meaning of the things go on changing. So any discipline is an evolving discipline. Even in this case, what we are studying in anthropology has been changing from time to time. To begin with, it was something like studying the simple societies. Today we are studying culture irrespective of what kind of society it is. That's the reason why, see, unfortunately those terms are still not introduced in your UPSC syllabus. But then we have something like slum anthropology. Because slums are considered to be the places where the rural cultures and the urban cultures, they actually meet. The slum culture is altogether a different one, which you cannot compare with the urban culture. So there are several new dimensions there. And when we are trying to have urban anthropology and kind of things, rural anthropology, sociology is also changing. Now they have tribal sociology, rural sociology. So at many places we see that the subject matter is merging and the borders are already blurred. And if an accommodative academician is there, he wouldn't want to have unnecessarily two different departments duplicating their work. So as an academician, as a person in UPSC, if you are writing an answer, because you don't have any stakes with neither of the disciplines in the university, you can perhaps safely conclude that it is only for the political reasons the two different departments are being maintained. Otherwise, there is so much of an interdisciplinary nature that is emerging. When I am using this word politics in academics, I think you understand. As long as you are all alone on the earth, there are no politics. When she got added up to you, politics started. More than one is always a political arena. అప్పుడు మొదలైంది నా మాట విను అని. ఇప్పుడు poor Adam insisted. God said not to do this. She didn't agree. Is he important? I am important. Adam didn't have a choice. ఆయన ఎక్కడున్నాడో తెలియదు కదా. Then he said, okay, let's have the apple. You know what happened. One apple created so many people. Are you fine? Any other question? Ji sir.
One thing is not exactly regarding this. These postmodern anthropologists are not visiting any new society, simple societies or cultures. So have most of the simple societies been explored and ethnography has been written about?
No. There are many untouched, unvisited, unreported societies still existing. Good number of Amazonian regions are still not explored. They are still, that is the problem now. There is one fear that is there in the minds of few scholars, that maybe even before we visit and report about them, they would vanish. And certain areas are unreachable also. Okay. But postmoderns are not visiting, not because there is no place left out. It's not that way. They are not visiting because they don't want to. That you will have to understand. There is a subject matter still waiting for you there. You don't want to visit the subject. Anything else? I'm giving you time because this is that concept which is very less understood, less taught, less spoken about.
And then why is anthropology accepting this postmodern school when they are only criticizing the works of the previous anthropologists?
We always believe that there is, from criticism only the next one comes. Unless otherwise you welcome somebody's criticism, you cannot think of having a new school or new way of studying. Maybe that somebody else will, some other school will come in the future criticizing postmodernism and they will give something new. We are waiting for that to happen. Maybe one of you might emerge as an anthropologist later, enough with UPSC. Let me give you a new theory of studying culture. Always welcome criticism, sir. Always welcome criticism. If you are not somebody who is not accepting criticism, not ready for it, you cannot grow. Or who is question? Huh. Can postmodern anthropology trace its origins to economics and sociology? No, mostly they are inspired by art forms. or for that matter, most of the disciplines were inspired by art only. Because art was that field which first came up with this idea of postmodern. Can I go right?
They invented any theory, they didn't do any ethnographs, just only the commentary.
No, they are not the people who give you new ethnographs.
Only they were this to criticize.
No, I don't call it criticize. I call it critical appraisal. Critical appraisal is, it's something like what is good in you, what is bad in you. They are not the people who are always talking negative of the people. It's not like that. You can say that it's a critical appraisal.
Were they trying to be the judiciary of anthropology?
अब इतने बड़े बड़े बात तो नहीं. I say that these are a small bunch of jobless anthropologists, with due respects, who I think were affected by identity crisis, and they were trying to create some identity for themselves by saying something new which was not said earlier. I think so.
When we want to preserve culture, what's the problem if they adopt to new techniques like modern the technology also?
Once again.
When we talk about conserving or preserving a culture, we do not want them to merge or come into the mainstream. We say that it's going to dilute their culture. Like what is the threat we see when we are adopting the new culture?
I think this is not a question related here, but in any case we will be examining this at a later point of time. Why should we preserve culture? If at all it has to be preserved, who should decide that it should be preserved? Who should decide that what should be preserved? And why actually preserving the past? Anyway, you cannot go back and live. Why should we preserve the past? Kind of questions we are going to examine. Hanji Nadeem. Is culture judgeable entity? Sir, if we are, see, there are different orientations from which this question can be answered. The question is, is culture a judgeable entity? If an anthropologist is speaking, you should not judge cultures. How many ever different orientations have come after cultural relativism? We still are holding on to that thought of cultural relativism, that being an anthropologist, you should not support cultures being judged. Had it not been anthropology class, maybe my orientation would have been different. Definitely it will be different. Can I go? Any other questions on postmodernism?
Ma'am, any other schools have been emerged after this school?
No. We are looking for it from you. But of course, we'll have to go back in time and study the other schools, like symbolism and other schools. Ji sir?
స్లమ్ స్టడీస్ సంథింగ్ చెప్తారు అది కూడా పోస్ట్ మార్టం అంటే వీళ్ళు ఒక మన పిక్చర్ ఇచ్చి దాంట్లో నాకు ఇష్టం వచ్చిన ఇంటర్ప్రిట్ చేసుకుంటారు ఆర్ట్ ఫామ్లో నాకు ఇష్టం వచ్చిన ఇంటర్ప్రిట్ చేసుకుంటారు సో వీళ్ళు కూడా ఒక ఎథ్నోగ్రాఫ్ తీసుకొని వాళ్ళకి ఇష్టం వచ్చిన ఇంటర్ప్రిట్ చేసి క్రిటిసైజ్ చేస్తారు లేకపోతే ఏదైనా సర్టెన్ వే అనేది ఉంటుంది
లేదు, that's the confusion there. That's the confusion. What is right and what is wrong, you are trying to impose from your perspective. In fact, postmodernist himself is a victim of his own ethic ideology. Postmodernist is a victim of his own ethic ideology. With your ethic perspective, you are analyzing how a culturologist has already written. They don't have a set pattern, though they are coming up with certain, see, we stand for this, we stand for this kind of. What they stand for is they don't stand for anything. Okay? బాబు అన్నాడు నిన్న, మీరు ఏం మాట్లాడుతున్నారో అర్థం కావట్లేదండి. నాకు అర్థమైతే కదా నీకు అర్థం కావడానికి. నాకు అర్థమైతే he was saying that he is not understanding what I am saying in the class. First of all, I don't understand what I am saying. So, it is not wrong. చర్చిలో ట్రాన్స్లేషన్ చేసుకున్నట్టు చేసుకోవాలని చాలా ఇబ్బందిగా ఉంటుంది. కానీ మాతృభాషలో మాట్లాడుకోవడం ఉన్నంత సుఖం ఎక్కడా ఉండదు కదా. I wrote books in Telugu also. I wrote an economics book in Telugu. So, I don't say UPSC, but for competitive exams only. That was a book on economy of AP, which I had written in English and translated by myself. So first I written in Telugu and then translated into English. So my heart is in Telugu rather than English. Chaliye sir, I think a question that was not asked so far in the exam, neither is mentioned in your syllabus. I want you to prepare once I give you the material on them. I don't think I will be discussing that topic in the class, but I will give you a material. The question is feminist anthropology. The question is feminist anthropology. So we are coming to the topic of postmodernism. Postmodernism is the most recent school, in anthropology. It is a school that provided a critical appraisal on the existing ethnographs and examining them from a reflexive point of view. It is based on the belief that there is no true objectivity and no authentic scientific method of studying cultures. Underline the last few words. No scientific method of studying the cultures. The central theme of postmodernism emerged from postmodernism in art and linguistics. Postmodern anthropology questions the authority of objective participant observers, though it suffers, underline the next statement that you are going to write, though it suffers from the lacuna of having a precise definition of itself. having a precise definition of itself. Many different experimental approaches comprise postmodernism that are mostly library oriented. In other words, they examined ethnographic writings from different perspectives. Linguistic analysis is the centrality of the school. The postmodernists believe that since the understanding of cultures mostly reflects the biases of the observer, right in quotes, culture cannot be completely or accurately described. Right in the next paragraph. The postmodernist orientation emerged in anthropology during the 1960s and flourished by 1990s with the writings and influences from anthropologists such as there are a few names there which you can write down for the sake of writing. I don't know if it is visible. This is considered to be the authority. He has a huge list of articles and books for his credit. There are the others there. Foucault, I don't know how you pronounce the rest of the fellows. Jacques Derrida. All those heavy names there. I want you to remember the last name because in some of the future classes we are going to talk about him, especially when topics like nationalism come. Keep writing. The school aimed at dissecting interpreting, criticizing, appreciating the existing doctrines of the discipline, to explore the ethics, standards, and methods of anthropology. In general, right in the next paragraph, in general, the following can be concluded as the postulates of postmodernists. The postulates of postmodernists. Keep writing in bullet points there. All accounts of culture are partial and conditioned to the observer. Secondly, anthropological writings do not reflect on the society being observed. Instead, it is the society that anthropologist belongs to will have an impact of the writings. You understood the statement? Write in the brackets, meaning anthropological writings have a potential of altering the opinion and viewpoints about the cultures under study. Continue writing there. In other words, an anthropologist can provide a new lens through which his own culture group can look at the others. All interpretations of culture and history are valid and shall be given equal importance when one examines how those documents were written. Fourthly, culture is a battle of conflicting interpretations. So much so that interpretations from within may differ from one another, apart from the observer's interpretation, being different from that of culture group itself. What does this resemble? What does this resemble? Read that statement to yourself. You already have written similar thing earlier. Emic and etic, it's actually right in the brackets there. It seems to be similar. It seems to be similar to the etic and emic arguments. Right in the next point. Due to the above views, objective study of culture is impossible. Continue writing there. Postmodernists believe that we arrived at a time where fieldwork in anthropology is neither mandatory nor necessary. Full stop. The need of the hour is to review the way cultures are presented, so that the future anthropologists can try identifying relatively better ways of describing, right in quotes, others. Right in the next paragraph. Barrett is a postmodernist who presented a classification of ethnographs based on how they were written, with a perspective that number one, an ethnographer should emphasize on including the opinions of the people being studied. Secondly, a sense of relativism, should be developed for the practices of the other cultures. Thirdly, he rejected grand universal schemes or theories that explain the other cultures, Right aside head there. Classification of ethnographs. There are 4 groups that he gives. Number 1, realistic ethnographs. These are the ethnographs that claim giving an actual portrait of culture or society. Their way of writing is called ethnographic realism. For example, Malinovsky's ethnographs. Secondly, interpretative ethnographs. They describe and interpret what members of society mean by the cultural aspects. For example, this we will see later. For example, ethnographs of Geerds. Thirdly, experimental ethnographs. They are contemporary ethnographs based on experiments involving giving hypotheses followed by testing and validation, providing a final statement. So I am giving you an example which more or less suits this, because the names that the postmodernist school actually had given under this, if at all I pick them up, that becomes another big, maybe a couple of lectures on them, so I don't want to deviate from there. I am giving a name that is more or less suitable here. You can take this name Koradubo. Fourthly, reflexive ethnographs. reflexive ethnographs, or dialogue ethnographs, dialogue, D-I-A-L-O-G-U-E, dialogue ethnographs, or postmodern ethnographs. I repeat, reflexive ethnographs, dialogue ethnographs, postmodern ethnographs. They study ethnographs and understand the underlying themes. They reflect on methods of data collection, way of interpretation of cultural aspects, method of theorizing, the kind of language used, and whether the ethnographer had accommodated the views and interpretations of the natives. There is an overemphasis on linguistic aspects. Right in the next paragraph. For postmodernists, an ethnographic study is a momentary study of culture. They believe that cultures are non-static. Cultures influence and are influenced by several factors leading to pluralistic cultures or societies. The commentaries on ethnographs are either poetic or in the prose verse. They provide opportunity for the future theorists to provide a different perspective. It is an emerging school that can be described as an armchair anthropology in the modern times. That is a small one.
Ma'am,
Ji sir.
are the postmodern anthropologists are the one who divided the schools of the anthropology?
No. Whose question is that?
Who divided the schools?
Over a period of time it happens, as I said to you, say with the case of classical and neo-evolutionism, it was Stewart who gave the division. Or for that matter, calling Bowers as a historical particularist, somebody else had done. So it is not like, different actors are coming and performing and going, and finally somebody would come and say that, okay, let me classify all of you. That doesn't happen. So titles over a period of time got generated, and sets of thinkers got accommodated in different schools of thought. And this one, they sat down and said that, see, we don't like whatever you have done, or we want to analyze what you have done so that we can give a guideline for the future anthropologists that, see, this is how you can write, you should not write, kind of. Let me take you to the next one. So back home, you read and reread what you have written, so that finally you try to come to terms to an understanding that currently, I don't want to talk about other social sciences, but the school of anthropology is definitely in a state of confusion. In fact, I give this final conclusion in the last 1 week of classes, but for you I have given in the first fortnight. I am taking you to the next one here, called symbolic anthropology. First you take the definition, then we will re-examine the trends of anthropological thought. Symbolic anthropology or interpretative anthropology is the study of cultural symbols and how those symbols can be interpreted to better understand a particular society. Write it down mechanically, we'll see what it is. Symbolic or interpretative anthropology is the study of cultural symbols and how those symbols can be interpreted to better understand a particular society. Can I talk? It's only one sentence. You can scribble quickly rather than inscribing it as a historical document. Now, let me give a quick recap of the trends in anthropological thought. What we said was there was one particular trend. There are a couple of them we discussed. One of them was this, that the originators of anthropological thought looked at culture holistically. And gradually we have seen, we said, that though they were holistic studies, of course your favorite areas are there. It's like I love all my children, but one of them is more important to me. We said that over a period of time, the anthropologists were focusing not at all the aspects of culture, but they started picking up small aspects of culture and started writing books and their theories. When I was saying this, I was actually talking about symbolic anthropologists. I repeat what I said. To begin with, these were holistic studies, whether it was evolutionists or functionalists. These were the people who were considering most of the aspects of culture. A few of them, they must have got lost, but then they were looking at culture not simply as a holistic entity. They were also looking at the integrated aspect in them, meaning that if one is changing, the others are also changing. But by the time you come to culture personality school, we see that their approach was altogether different, in the sense that they were trying to concentrate on a few aspects alone. Maybe adolescence was their mainstay, or something else was their mainstay. So they were deciding on, this is what I am going to study. I am not really bothered about the rest of them. Are you following what I am saying? So from holistic studies to part studies, when culture personality was studying a part, that part was important to them, the rest of them was not. It's like after doing your graduation, when you are doing your specialization, that small thing becomes more important than the rest of the things. You are going deeper and deeper into that small thing. And tooth becomes everything for you. The rest of the body is not yours. I am not bothered about the rest of them. What I am looking at is your tooth only. On the other hand, when it comes to symbolic anthropologists, they were focusing on this small element. They pick up one small element and they present this small element as a representative of the entire thing. Did you understand the difference? First fellows were getting into everything. Second fellows, they were not bothered about the whole thing. What is necessary for me is this small portion. I deal only with this. The rest of it is your business. How they are cultivating, how is the political system, all that is not my business. My business is, maybe I look at this small thing. But the interpretative anthropologists, they pick up small entities of culture, present as if they are representative of the rest of the thing. So it is part to whole. But then you see a lot of lacunae in the ethnographic writings, because they do a lot of work on that small thing. And finally, when they are interpreting, they are trying to give it a bigger picture. It looks to be a lot theoretical in that sense. Or maybe they are trying to show to us what is really not there. You'll understand what I mean by this. Maybe I'll before going to show something, maybe we'll try to define the meaning, the term symbol. It's a very common word that we come across in English. What you might mean by symbol? Resemblance of something, and sir, which represents something, and defining something in a code. Okay, defining something in a code, or alphabets. Okay, some abstract idea, or some idea rather, whether it is abstract, defined, partially defined, whatever, some idea you are trying to simplify and present in a particular form. So in a way it is something like coding. This is an explanation of what she had said. So people said alphabet, people said a resemblance of something, and something that you have to explain a big concept or big belief or big idea. A big idea you are trying to simplify and put in one small symbol. And maybe the one that gives a group an identity. Symbol can be something that gives you an identity. Or बताइए. Pictographs, not simply alphabets, but pictures also are symbols. So there is so much of mixing that is happening. How you define symbol and what is a symbol. What can be a symbol? What can be a symbol is this: an alphabet, a picture, and okay, the nature of the symbol. It is, you're defining what kind of symbol it is. It can be secular, it can be orthodox, it can be. Somebody said from the back.
It can be a guideline or something like guide principle.
Can you explain?
Symbols like a stop or maybe don't do it or no.
Okay, you're talking about the traffic signals maybe. Something like a guideline. So it shows that when you see that, you, okay, you'll have to go, you're not supposed to go, kind of.
A simple way of putting a big picture put across, maybe you're putting a big definition into a small sentence.
Anything else? Anything else? What's a symbol?
Pride of the clan.
Huh?
Pride of the clan.
Pride of the clan. Gestures can be symbols. Picturization of identity. और बताइए. So many things. Finally, I'll give my definition.
Abstract word.
An abstract thing, a meaningless thing, a meaningful thing that has a partial meaning. There is this man, R.C. Brown, who defined symbol. Very short definition. Symbol is any cultural entity that has a meaning. That's what I understood from whatever you are saying. Symbol is any cultural entity that has a meaning. Anything can be a symbol. A swastika can be a symbol. A flag can be a symbol. Maybe when I am saying symbol, that is giving you when you say that, that's giving you an identity. Your attire may be a symbol. Your language can be a symbol. Your gestures can be symbolizing something. Any damn thing in culture can be a symbol. Or if I am going a little further, the kind of marital system that you have symbolizes what you stand for. So by now you should be able to sense that what we are studying in anthropological thought has moved from describing something new, describing that is very obvious, to trying to talk about things that are difficult to explain. We have come to a stage where we are trying to read between the lines. I'll show you something. Some pictures and a video. First we'll see some pictures. That's the explanation. We'll see that. That's what is interpretative anthropology. Interpretative anthropology or symbolic anthropology is explaining culture by interpreting symbols. How symbols are interpreted. So some thinkers are there who are interpreting symbols from the group side. Some thinkers are there who are interpreting meaning from their side. What's there? I know what's going on in your mind.
Wow.
pottery.
Pottery, okay. Where is the pot? This is the pot or this is the one?
More like a craft.
Hmm?
Candles in older times.
Okay, old candles, old style candles. An hourglass, maybe. An hourglass with, oh, okay. Chess, okay. Or maybe two individuals close to each other or far from each other. అయిపోయింది ఫోటోలో ఆగిపోయింది. I can be very nasty actually. I am very nasty. We were showing some other painting in the earlier class, Gestalt's studies, wherein we have seen that there are things that actually go unnoticed. This is the other dimension. Many times your mind sees what is obviously not there. Many times our mind sees what is obviously not there. It may be that it is something like an hourglass or a pot or something else. But your mind might be seeing two individuals there. This is what in other occasions is called perception. There are several such pictures that you must have seen. There is one that popular picture of a old lady and the young girl. Based on where you are, you see the picture. Some of you may be seeing the old fellow, some of you may be seeing the young fellow, based on whether your heart is young or. So it is all your viewpoint. So it's like, the way you see the board here, the way you see the class, when you're there in the front row, you see it differently. When you're there, you see differently. For the person who is just here, he has nothing else to see in the world except the board and the teacher. For the person who is seeing the entire world he can see. As a result, he will be learning much more than what the person is learning from here. Or he will be learning things different from what the person is learning from here. This is one way of interpreting what you see. Let me show you something.
Welcome to the MCAT Multimedia Series, a MCAT analysis of Clifford Geertz's The Interpretation of Cultures. Culture is the common interpretation of public signs and symbols. In 1973, Clifford Geertz published a collection of essays called The Interpretation of Culture to support this thesis. In it, he outlined a methodology for understanding the nature of cultures. Geertz was an early advocate of the school of symbolic anthropology, conducting his research in Indonesia and then Morocco. This school of thought argued that culture is not explicable through power or through systematic frameworks such as the law. Instead, culture is semiotic, meaning it is understandable in terms of symbols and people's interactions with them. In the interpretation of culture, Geertz adapted Gilbert Ryle's earlier concept of a thick description. This idea held that the understanding of certain events or symbols depends on their context. For Geertz, a thick description of an event or symbol gives far more than a factual summary. Importantly, it also takes into account the context which gives the event or symbol meaning. To understand Geertz's ideas better, let's consider one of his own examples. Picture someone winking. A thin description of this event would simply be a factual account of what occurs. It would describe the contraction of muscles around one eye which causes it to shut. In contrast, a thick description looks beyond this, taking into account the context which gives the wink its cultural meaning. Let's look at two different contexts a wink can occur in. Meet Sarah and Toby. Sarah is being interviewed for a job by Toby. At the end, they shake hands and Toby smiles and winks at Sarah. From the context, we can assume that Toby was impressed with the interview and wanted to let Sarah know this. Consequently, Sarah feels hopeful that she will get the job. Now instead, let's say Toby and Sarah are in a bar, and Sarah offers to buy Toby a drink. Toby accepts, and Sarah passes him the drink, winking as she does so. Now that the context is different, so is the meaning of the wink. It is now flirtatious, and a suggestion of interest from Sarah to Toby. Even though the gesture was the same, placed in these two different contexts, it has an entirely different meaning. Only through understanding the meanings people apply to winking can we judge the intention in each scenario. Clifford Geertz was a highly influential American cultural anthropologist, and his ideas continue to resonate in modern academic thought. A more detailed examination of these ideas can be found in the McCat analysis.
Introduction to Clifford Geertz, The Interpretation of Cultures. Interpretation of Cultures, Introduction to Clifford Geertz. Are you trying to see, it's like this, sir. You have started receiving certain mails from me. What I am trying to do there is, in the brackets, I am writing which paper, which chapter. So from now what you try doing is you maintain Excel sheet and you try writing the sources there. I may try to send you a sample Excel sheet there so that you would start updating this as and when you are receiving certain mails. So whenever you are maintaining the resources list, you should have what is the primary source. Primary source in most of the cases will be your class notes. It's a rarity that for a few chapters I will be mentioning one particular book or one particular article. So you will have to have the entire list with you. Preserve these articles, don't lose them. I am also numbering so that you know which number is missing with you. If at all you haven't received something, you can be able to get from me or from your Apart from that, whatever videos you are watching, when you are taking the title of it, you may kindly download it and preserve it. So in that particular chapter, so that you can revisit at a later point of time for maybe a better analysis kind of. Don't think that I am giving you too much of work, but I can't really help it. Now, a brief idea you must have had from that small AV, what could be a symbol. Symbol means something. Maybe you are trying to communicate something from the symbol. Many times what is outwardly seen in a symbol is actually not what it means. Many times what you are trying to show in the symbol is actually not it is. It means something else. I'll give you one best example. I didn't get the picture, but Indian national flag. Indian national flag. You have those three colors. You have a Ashok Chakra there with so many number of spokes or whatever. What is the meaning of the flag? I mean, whenever you see a flag for that matter, you see a flag, what it means to you. A nation, country.
Same ideology living in a
The idea of that, okay, maybe India is representing there. I mean, when I say Indian flag, anything. What does that symbol mean? We said nation, nationality. It's a secular nation. This looks very interesting. Even the flag giver did not think of that. What was the flag giver interpreting? The colors.
The principle on which nation should be found.
Mm-hmm.
Principle on which nation is found, ma'am. Like orange for green for agriculture, white for peace. Certain.
Okay, certain meanings were given by him, green for agriculture kind of a thing. I love this interpretation actually. Saffron for one religion, green for the other religion. Both of you should live peacefully, so white color in between. But I love this explanation, though it was not the spirit with which the flag was given at that time. The meaning of it can be interpreted differently based on the situation. Suppose you see the Olympic Games are going on, where your flag is based on that, okay, we are the pride now, we have this thing. I actually love this entire thing of flag code. The rules that are associated with the flag code. You can see the same kind of code for every symbol in every culture. You cannot use all the symbols all the time, and they don't mean the same thing every time. Like if white is for peace, white may be for certain other things in certain other situations. White is not always for peace. Sometimes white is also for war. White is also for mourning. Meaning that through that symbol, you are actually trying to understand the mind behind that symbol. As you have seen a little while ago, swastika in a Buddhist context is something different, and swastika in a Nazism is altogether different. The ideology is different. The way you use it is different. Now, what is happening in this school of symbolic anthropology is every thinker is trying to pick up one single thing from a culture group. As it was narrated a little while ago, Geert was picking up some aspect from Balinese culture, the cockfights, and he interprets the entire culture from the Bali cockfight. Somebody else comes up, he picks up certain other things. So suppose a foreigner comes here, or maybe the task is given to you. From India, can you pick up something that may be considered as representative of the entire culture so that you study?
National anthem.
Taken, और बताइए. You don't give me a conclusion. That is my job. Your job was to give a symbol. Finally, I will say that, okay, it's a symbol. मेरा job आप करोगे तो अंता मेरे जैसे नेनें जैसे ना. So he had done the job. I will go somewhere. Look at this. Those are the schools within symbolism. French symbolism. So we are continuing with the same categorization based on nationality. That is our basic character in anthropology. Discipline is divided on nationality lines. French symbolism, British and American symbolism. We would be beginning with the American symbolism. Geertz. You have one lady there, Mary Douglas, Victor Turner and Levi Strauss. continuing this practice of giving a hint of what each of them had dealt with. We don't work on suspense basis. Many times the question appeared with the title symbolic anthropology. So you'll define what is symbolic anthropology, what might be symbol. These are the categories that we have. You say that these are part studies, trying to interpret what the culture means, what that symbol means. Which one, sir? Geertz was studying Indonesian society. His fancy was cockfights. Turner was studying one of the societies in Zambia. Called Dembu. N is silent. N-D-E-M-B-U, Dembu, that is a Zambian society, where he picked up one particular tree called, I am writing here, called a Madhai tree. So whatever happens, it's like our neem tree, or we have several trees that we worship. Tulasi చిన్నది కదా, పెద్దది people you go around the tree, no? And you have so many hangings there. Every time जब भी आपको मन्नत मांगना है आप जाओगे, and then ఈ మధ్య తెలుగు సీరియల్స్ చాలా కనబడుతున్నాయి. సడన్గా నాగుపాము వస్తుంది, అందులో చెట్లు నాగుపాము వస్తుంది. Banyan tree. We have several trees that we worship. Neem tree. Mary Douglas is actually studying cultural symbols related to human body. Cultural symbols related to human body. Levi Strauss has so many things to talk about. For him, cockfights of Bali. Did we any time speak of Levi Strauss earlier? Not a single time? Did we speak of him any time? Anything that we spoke of? Anything? Huh? Rituals and folk tales. Before going there, I will give you one story here. I think it's very blasphemous that 15 days passed by and I didn't speak anything about Levi Strauss. A Frenchman. I said in the beginning of the class, difficult to place him somewhere in the discipline. Actually, there was a puzzle whether he was an anthropologist. He became an accidental anthropologist. The accident was marriage. There cannot be much better accident than that. He had actually married an ethnographer. होता है ना जो नई जब शादी होती है, you want to take her or she wants to take you along with the workplace and then show to the rest of the world that see, this is what he or she is, and then you want to showcase your work also, impress. And initially you are pretty impressed. If you are impressed, the damage is done. She was successful in that. And I don't know whether it is a damage for the discipline, damage for him. I don't know. But I'll have to say this in the beginning itself. Sometimes we find certain people difficult to understand. Sometimes we find it difficult to understand certain people. It is not their mistake. It is your mistake. He was something of that kind. He was a less understood fellow. And many of the things that he was speaking, people spoke decades later. Because he was talking about things that are not visible. We have to understand that things that are not visible are not the ones that do not exist. ఆ సినిమాలో బ్రహ్మానందం కోవై సర్లా The question was, she had a problem that you have adulterated the milk. You will have to show milk and water separately. Very difficult. Then there is a demonstration of pain. He says that it is difficult to prove. There is no water. You prove it if at all there is water. दो चार लगा देती है, and then she asks, prove it. When he says that there is pain, prove it. Now this is a big problem actually. Proving the things that you cannot see. When I say that I am hurt, show the hurt. If you can't show, there is no evidence, so you can't believe. That's where once again I bring back the same sentence, blessed are those who do not see yet believe. Many things we believe in. There is air you can't see. There are so many things that you can't see. When we believe all these things are true, what Levi Strauss says is also true. But many times the kind of explanations he gives leave us speechless because we can't understand what it is. I'll give you one example of that kind. Forget about this for some time. I love this old man who lived for more than 100 years, making it difficult for the people to walk in the corridors where he used to walk in the university. Sometimes it is like that. You don't want to encounter people because you don't know what he speaks. He had so many things for his credit. I begin with the ethnograph, whether he's an anthropologist or not. When he was married to her, she said that we will have to go to a simple society. That's like a honeymoon. He stays in one particular society with her for 2 days. That becomes his fieldwork. And he becomes an anthropologist because he was writing about that tribe after staying there for 2 days, as if it's 2 long years of Malinowski. But then the inquiry starts. The inquiry is, why do people do what they do? He has his own set of explanations. We will try to go to what he tried to explain, how, but then I am giving this one example. He was presenting an account of culinary practices in French. Some of you who must have stayed there, you must have seen the French people closely. Every culture group has these, what to cook for whom. What to cook for whom. See, when a particular group of visitors are coming to your house, see, whatever I'm saying, it is a subject matter. I'm not entertaining you, it's a subject matter. Eventually, if you are getting entertained, that's not my problem. Based on who is visiting you, the menu may be different, the way you cook may be different. You might recall what happens back home. When your friends come, what are the kinds of dishes that you're making, and then how you are offering to them. When compared to somebody, maybe your father's friends are coming, or your relatives are coming, elderly people are coming, or maybe somebody to consider you for marriage into their household, if they are coming, how is it that you are presenting things to them? Sometimes, particular kinds of preparations, the way you prepare, people take pride in that. People take pride in that. I remember I had one very senior colleague long time back. I was doing a part-time job in one of the junior colleges where the administrative officer, who was a lady, a very orthodox Brahmin, she always used to say, she always used to invite me for a lunch. अब खाने के लिए कहीं भी चलते हैं ना इसमें बिरयानी కోసం బార్డర్లు దాటేస్తాం కదా. So the typical statement she used to give, please come over, I'll give you a very ritual lunch. A ritual lunch in the sense which she prepared madigattukoni. So she believed in that, preparing in a particular attire, like wearing a pancha kind of a sari, and then while you prepare, you have actually taken the holy bath. Having taken the holy bath, you cook when the water drops into the dish, that adds to the taste. And then you are being served on the floor, the banana leaf. And then a particular order in which things are actually served to you. I really enjoy that sumptuous thing, and then the sequence in which that goes on. There has to be a proper format. In many of the South Indian marriages, I don't know about North India, but South Indian marriages are typical of this kind, where the serving happens in a sequence. First it has to come, later this, later this. The moment you sit, you should not order for sambar. Sambar వస్తుందండి వెనకాల వస్తుంది. మజ్జిగ కావాలంటే మీకు ఇష్టం ఉన్నప్పుడు రాదు కదా. It follows the queue. In that order you will have to eat. But this ritual kind of making, this is a speciality of that particular culture. Now, having understood this, you try to understand what he was saying. He was somebody who tried to understand culture from a we and them perspective. This is a basic thing. Whoever belong to our culture, we call them we and others are them. We treat our own people differently compared to the outsiders. When I am saying treating, it includes the way you serve, the way you cook for them. He is also looking at this from nature and culture perspective, meaning that you belong to one particular type. By nature you are one, by culture you are different from the others. You belong to a different culture. By nature you are one and the same because you are from the same lot. Now what happens is, in the French, he translated it as the roasted and the boiled or cooked. It's as good as when I said in the previous class, all religions are same. There might be a superficial similarity. If all humans are one and the same, why so much of infighting? When we are saying that all humans are same, maybe you are looking at the biology. 2 legs, 2 hands kind of a thing. But it is only an outward look. Outwardly they might be one and the same. If that was the fight, there was no need of anthropology at all. If that was the conclusion, if everybody was same, why? Adena question? ఆన్సర్ వచ్చిందా? రక్తం మెల్లిగా వస్తుంది. We and them, nature and culture, and this he is applying it to culinary practices, meaning that if people from your own culture group, the one who are close to you, your kinsmen are visiting you, you offer them roasted food. If people outside your own kin group, distant people are coming, you offer them boiled or cooked food. I'll give logic also. Not my logic, his logic. అని ఆయన అన్నాడు. He is giving an explanation. Don't give weird looks. I am giving his explanation. He explains something like this: roasted versus cooked. Many of you must have gone to the bonfires, no? Campfires, etc. Or these days, barbecue invitations are very popular. I'm not a great artist. Got the picture? There's a fireplace. There's a chicken hanging there. You keep on rotating it so that you properly roast it. This is something that you prepare for your close kinsmen, because between you and them there is no gap. There is no obstruction between you and them. There is nothing that separates you and them. On the other hand, if it is people from the other culture group, this is all brought there. This one symbolizes the distance between you and them. ఏం చెప్పాడండి అన్నట్టుగా లేదు. There is a psychological barrier which is taking the physical form of the vessel. So when non-kinsmen come, they serve them boiled and cooked food. When kinsmen come, close fellows come, they offer them roasted food. For a moment, we accept what he's saying, because with a lot of symbolism he's telling. He didn't stop there. He extended such discussion to cannibalism. Cannibalism? Cannibalism can be of different types. The different set of people in anthropology who study cannibalism. The people who spent their whole lot of time studying cannibals. I'll give something else here. Whether it gels well or not, with our own practice also. Maybe my orientation towards Telugu is a little more in today's class, because I feel at home with Levi Strauss. Suppose you are talking about your wife. Generally you say that కాల్చుకొని తింటుందండి. కాల్చుకొని తింటుంది, ఉడకబెట్టుకొని తినట్లేదు. కాల్చుకొని తినడం is the wife fries you and consumes. She doesn't boil you and consume. अब इसका कोई आपका हिंदी का कुछ हो तो आप देख लें. I think it gels well with our culture also, that close people would consume you by roasting. Distant people can only boil you and consume. He extends it to cannibalism also. He says that in cannibalism there are two kinds. One is exocannibalism, endocannibalism. This is one variant. One kind of classification in cannibalism is exocannibalism and endocannibalism. Exocannibalism is you consume the outsiders, endocannibalism is you consume your own people. But why cannibalism? There are reasons. Reasons why classification is also there. Reasons why cannibalism is one we call ritual cannibalism. So I'm saying you once again, though we are not having cannibalism as a major topic in your syllabus, but then because I love the topic, I'm giving you some information there. One kind of categorization is based on whom you are consuming, exocannibalism and endocannibalism, consuming your own people, consuming outsiders. There is a second type of classification that is based on the purpose. One I said is ritualistic cannibalism. We are going to see in the classes on archaeology, at one particular place in China, we found an evidence. We found an evidence of a skull. The skull with foramen magnum, the hole through which the spinal cord goes, foramen magnum seems to have been intentionally scooped and expanded. Aha annara? అమ్మ అనేది రకరకాలుగా వాడచ్చు అనమాట. When there is an intentional scraping of it, people interpreted that maybe they were scooping out the content from there, maybe for a consumption purpose because they liked it, or maybe because they are offering it to the gods. So if at all you are doing it for a ritualistic purpose, that's a ritual cannibalism. It may not be the skull for that matter, anything for that matter. Now if somebody is to offer a 16-year-old young girl so that you pass UPSC, everybody would give. Nobody would say no. There you forget humanism and all that. The second kind of cannibalism is scarcity based on survival cannibalism. Survival cannibalism is I have nothing else to eat, I eat you. The justification is scarcity of food. Third one is much more juicier. We call that gustatory cannibalism. Gustatory cannibalism. Gustatory cannibalism is a feel that the neighbor, the other fellow tastes good. You feel that the other fellow tastes good. Just for the feel, just for the taste of it, you consume the other fellow. Now I give it to you, whichever you want to. This is one kind of analysis we give on cannibalism. Now this is an extension. What Levi-Strauss is giving is an extension. It is not about whether it is exocannibalism or endocannibalism. He is talking about how you consume. How you consume is based on whom you are consuming. So suppose you are consuming your own fellow, how will you consume? Roast and consume. If at all you are consuming an outsider, see, you know Levi-Strauss. You have understood Levi-Strauss so well. And after he had given all these kinds of the so-called rational or irrational theories, there is one other person called Paul Shankanan. Paul Shankanan is an authority in the study of cannibalism in anthropology. He studied more than 165 cannibalistic societies in the world. He lived with them, he studied them. No, don't raise an eyebrows. Every taste vaadidi. పుర్రెకో జిహ్వా జిహ్వకో రుచి అని ఎవరి టేస్ట్ వాడది. When he had studied so many societies, he had a credible evidence. He presented statistics in how many societies, what kind of consumption is there. And he concludes that finally consumption is nothing to do with whether it's an exocannibalism or endocannibalism. It is primarily based on your taste. Some people like roasted food, some people like boiled food. And there is no more logic than that. This is one of the theories given by Levi-Strauss. It is a curtain raiser for Levi-Strauss actually. So So we are going to see several other things about Levi-Strauss now in the later classes. But here you understand that this man was trying to give certain things. He was trying to present culinary practices as a symbol of certain cultural aspects in that society where he was studying. He was also going into, there are several other things. He is known for his study of coyote. I must have mentioned this in your class. Why is coyote considered to be a trickster? When you are comparing somebody with a coyote, what actually you mean by that? He was also somebody who was studying myths from a structuralist perspective. So he was trying to put across various culture groups that are involved in various myths. So for example, I give the myth of Purusha Sukta to him, he will have a totally different structural examination of it. Keeping his idea aside for some time, so that I have already given you some basic idea about Levi-Strauss, what he must be talking about. We will be going to whom? Clifford Geertz. So I think I will continue with that from tomorrow's class. In the meantime, you start your preparation for your exam. Sir, make a note in your book. We have completed a fortnight today. Let us celebrate. First one I have given you is from the newspaper. I am talking about the assignment before I forget. In the assignments column, you kindly make a note. 13th of July, in the Hindu, we have this article Aryan debate. And today we have discussed what is called postmodernism. Postmodernism, for which you will depend on your class notes alone. And we have introduced to you symbolic anthropology. We will be continuing in your next class, that is tomorrow.